It'd be a surprise attack from the starboard side. Ha ha! You weren't expecting that, were you? No, I tried a different start today because, we're going to have a closer look at the Beatrice, right? So I thought I'd bring you up a bit more close, right? A bit closer to the old vessel here. So we can have a look at the beautiful ship that she is and chat about her. So I wanted her to be a bit more close, right? And also, I thought I wouldn't wear my hat, right? The big pointy hat now, because we get in the road, you see less of the ship. So I'm doing that, not even wearing my jacket, or not even my cutlass. I haven't even got my cutlass on. Is that crazy or what? Cleaner! Oh, I just don't know. It's still scary, even though we haven't got a cutlass. All right, okay. No, what else? What am I going to do about it? Well, I figure, not having anything to point, but if I point my hand, it takes up all the space and that too. So I thought, I won't use my cutlass for that because I'll be off a shot when I did it, all right? So I'll just use my old butter knife. You know me, the old butter knife, I keep it in the way, right? Oh, there she is. All right, there we go. So I'll use that as a pointer, right? As we work our way around the ship and talk about bits and pieces of Beatrice, right? So you're learning more about her as I sit here in front of you and chat about me dear old Beatrice. She's a beautiful ship, right? A lovely, lovely ship. Remember I said she's a topsail schooner, right? So schooner, that's so the sails are fore to aft, right? Which means they're pointed backwards, right? From the fore, which is also, the bow, right? To the stern, which is the aft. So they're fore to aft, right? Those ones. But being a topsail schooner means it has these two up here, right? And they're little topsails, right? And they're the square rigged ones, right? That's the difference. They're your fore to aft sails, and they're your square rigged sails. Makes sense because they point that way, and that's square shaped, right? Similar to this one, right, is like a brigantine or a brig, right? You see those around. They're similar in the way they've got fore to aft sails and squares, but they actually got more squares than figured. So this one would be like, there would be these two would be up there like that, be two square sails up there, but it'd have that sail. But down here, it'd have another big square sail there, right? And that'd be a brig. So that's a little bit different if you see that in the sail, not to get them confused with the old topsail schooner. It's another similar sort of ship, This one's got 2 masts, right? Most schooners, right, like this, have got 2 or 3 masts. Same with the brigs. They tend to be smaller vessels, not the huge ones, right? A bit smaller, but nippy, right? That kind of stuff. Like this one would be 98 tons displacement, right? Displacement's when the ship goes in the water, pushes out that water, they measure it all out. It's all technical stuff like that. But that's about 98 tons. She was 95 feet long, right? Which is probably about 30 meters, 29, 30 meters in your speak, right? And just under 6 meters across, right? So she's not real huge, right, for what we had to do. And so we do all that sort of stuff. But not being huge, what that meant was she had a high sail to draft ratio, to the displacement ratio, right? So lots of sails for how much water she put out of the water, so she could be really fast, right? And she had a relatively low draft as well, so right, with draft is how much she goes underneath the water, right? So there's fairly flat bottom boat, not like those big pointy racy ones you see like that these days, right? So your low draft, right? That meant she was fast and maneuverable, right? And she could go into places that other boats couldn't go into, right? In less things around, closer to shore and stuff like that. If you're trying to get away from one of those big battleships, you take them in close to shore and they'd run aground and get stuck and all that sort of stuff, and you could keep skipping away. Which remember the schooner, that's the Scottish word for skipping stones across the water, right? So that would be the schooners, we'd skip away from all that kind of stuff. So an always fast boat, very nippy, right? They're the kind of things we have to do, right? Okay, now, let's talk about some of the sails, all right? Some of the sails. Let's talk about the sails. Because remember, we said there's square rigging sails, those on there, right? Okay. Now, this is the foremast, and this is the main mast, right? You got that? That's the foremast and the main mast, all right? Okay, so the foremast is up the front of the boat. The main mast is the big one with the bigger sails on it and all that sort of stuff. So on the foremast here, you got your foresail, right? And you got your fore lower topsail and your fore upper topsail, right? The 2 topsails up there, right? At the front of the boat here, you see this? This is the bowsprit, all right? This sits out the front here like that kind of stuff. That sort of acts to protect the boat, but also gives you more sailing space, makes the boat longer without actually having to make it bigger and heavier, right? Gives you all that extra space. And then on that you fly your jibs, all right? So this is your flying jib at the top, and this is your regular jib, all right? Sometimes you got an outer jib you can put there as well in the middle, okay? And there your jibs, all right? And that one there, right? That there be a fore staysail, all right? A staysail is one that runs along the stays. Now you remember we're talking about the rigging, right? The rigging is the ropes, But we don't call them ropes, we call them lines. Remember the ropes one, right? The lines, right? Well, the stays are these ones that go up and keep hold of the mast, right? They're the stays. They keep them staying there, right? The ones that keep the sails, they use the sails there. You see them tying off the sails to point them in the right way with the wind. They're called the braces because you're bracing it against the wind, right? Brace the mainsail, you remember that expression, right? Oh, that's that kind of thing. So they come off the ends here, the braces. But the stays are these ones, and they go up to the mast and they hold it secure. And they have sails there. When you put down extra sails, when you're chasing down those blighters, right, to catch their treasure, you have stay sails you can put up right there. And you can see there, you can't see it, I don't think, in the camera, right? But there's another little line right going all the way down there. And they can put another stay sail there, but it's not there on the rigging of this one when we're out in this particular time. All right. All right, and what else you got? Ah, down here, that's the main mast, that's your mainsail, that's your main topsail. Now these bars here, like that bit, you sort of about hanging from the yard arm, you heard all that kind of stuff, right? Well, that's your yard there, and the yard arms are the little bits tagged on the end there like that gives you that extra distance, right? But they're your yards. The ones here on these sails and the fore and aft ones, they're called booms, all right? Different names for all the different things. They're your booms, right? All right, and these ones here, these diagonal ones here that are loose, right? They're called the gaffs, all right? So you have the gaffs and the booms. What else we got now? Right there, is it the mast, all right? This is, yeah, and you've got the top of your mast here. And you can see that there. Where else we go in there? Anything else we can show you? Oh, I'm talking about the figurehead, right? Up the front here, right? Underneath the bowsprit. And they've got a little net in there and all that kind of stuff. And remember, we've got the head up the front here. All right, you got the figurehead, all right? You know the expression, he's a figurehead. Well, basically, it doesn't do a lot, right? The old ships, the old Viking ships, some of them, and some of those old Mediterranean ones, the battleships, right there, that have big rammy things up the front and actually run into other ships, right? But the figureheads became something symbolic for the ship. And the crew and that were really treated it well, and they really respected it, and that's why a lot of them end up being ladies, right? Women, and that's why the ships would be called after women and stuff like that, right? But they'd have the figurehead up the front, and that was really good. Really responsible, but really didn't do a lot, right? But a lot of respect. So that's where that expression, the figurehead, comes from, right? If that made any sense at all. All right, now, when we get down to the decks, right? You get all the way down here to the deck. You'll see this is a little different. All right, it's flat all the way along. You notice that it's flat all the way along, a bit different like that, okay? Some of those old ships you'd see would have little decks here, right? They'd have, up here, they'd have a quarter deck, all right? It's so named because it was about a quarter of the full-size deck. It went up and across at the back, all right? We don't got that, our wheel's just down there, you can see that. And up the front, some of them had a step up at the front as well, right? And that would be the forecastle, right? The forecastle. Remember I thought the forecastle, that's the cabins, right? For the crew, where we're all singing? Well, that's down below this front section. Everything from here is called the forecastle. And that's short for forecastle, right? Because the old Vikings, you remember the Vikings? They used to build little castles at the front of their ship, little castles, little protected areas where they could shoot their arrows and throw their spears and rocks even, right, to the ships. And that was a protected space. That was called a forecastle. And then the other sailing ships, some of them would have little steps up there, and that'd be the forecastle like that. And underneath that's where the crew is. Remember we had that before the mast. When you were before the mast, that's basically your crew. So all the crew's cabins were in this section of the ship here, right? That in the front, which is a lot more rough because they're at the front, they get the slapping like that. Captain's cabins down the back, because that's the way you get the smoother ride, you know? Get some privilege of being captain, right? Good job. All right, so we don't call it the forecastle anymore, we just call it the forecastle for short, but that's what it was for, as a castle, right? But you'll see, like I said, it's flat all the way, guys, because we tend to modify our boats with pirates, because we don't want to step between anywhere along the ship. We want a flat surface, because it gives you a good flat fighting platform, right? Because you can fly off there, so it's flat all the way along, so a good fighting platform, right? So that's what we got there, like that. What else we got here like that? Well, once you get past the old mast, so you see how it's got the two masts there, right? Well, I thought I'd show you a bit of a cross-section of down below, right? So you get a bit of an idea of what's underneath the waterline, right? So what I got here, two little pitches I've done up, right? There we go. So I'll show you the first one, right? See that yellow one, that yellow bit, right? That's where this bit's coming into, right? So you can see the two masts. And now I'll show you up close so you can actually see what it is, right? So this being a small vessel, it's only really got 3 decks plus the bilge, right? The bilge is down the bottom where your the pumps are, where the water is, your bilge tank, you want to pump that out every now and then and all that sort of, and make repairs and all that stuff. But it's a very low space of bilge, not much room in there at all, right? So we got 3 decks. We got the weather deck, which is a top deck, which, you know, you can see is up here, right? That's the weather deck. It's called that because it's open to the weather. It's also our main deck because we're only a small ship, right? And we keep our guns on the main deck. Remember I told you about that before? We just cover them with canvas and that because there's not enough room down below, right? So we keep our cannons up there, right? And I said we only keep 10 cannons there, right? One of the reasons is, again, more cannons, less space, less weight, all right, for the hold. All that kind of stuff. And you need more crew, right? 4 to 6 crew for each gun. You would do the maths, right? 10 guns. You're looking at least 40 guys, up to 60 guys if you're fully past it. I usually keep around 50 guys who are just on the ship to fire the guns, right? Which is a lot of crew. And there's more money to spill and all that kind of stuff like that. So we keep them up there on the weather deck, right? So we keep our guns up there, and you can see the boats up there as well. We can see all that there like that. The next down there, right? That's the lower deck, right? And that's where the cabins are. So you can see the 2 masts there. It was the same as the 2 masts here, right? So down there, you got the crew's cabin here. You see they got some water and stuff there. And the captain's cabin and all that's back this way, right? You got little stairs between them. And down the bottom, that's the hold underneath, right? That's where you keep all your stuff, right? All your gunpowder and stuff gets kept down there because it's underneath the water level, right? So it's less likely to get hit by a cannonball and all that sort of stuff, which can be very dangerous. A cannonball goes through your hull and hits the old gunpowder, you'd be in trouble, right? And, all right, and that's where you put all the treasure and stuff like that. And also in the middle here, right? We keep that pretty empty as well for extra treasure and stuff like that, extra crew and extra stuff we can put in there if we need to, right? So I'm only the crew up there. Remember, we have shifts on and off, right? So you're either on or off there. So only half the crew need to be sleeping at any one time. And they all sleep pretty much stuck together, pretty close together, right? They've all got those hammocks in between, right? Because they rock nicely in the thing. So you're in a hammock when you're sleeping in there. And you can rock there, you'll laze back and all that. And people would share a hammock, right? So you get your turns on and off and that kind of stuff. Because that was it when you're either working or you're off, right? So you share the hammocks at different times. So it was good to share with somebody who was a similar level of cleanliness than you. Otherwise, you might end up with a stinky little hammock to sleep in. But that was how we used to do it, right? Down the back, captains were here, and so the wheel was close to the captain because that was the rudder as well. As well as being comfortable, it was practical, you know. Comfort was one thing, practicality was another, right? And that's where the wheel is, because steering, because that's where your rudder is. Remember, the rudder is a little bit, it steers at the back, right? And you can see that, and the bilge is down below if you want to pump that, so you get pumps down there and you got all that kind of stuff. All right, down the bottom, holding the whole thing together, right, is the keel, all right? Now the keel is like a big, long bit of construction, really. The whole ship's built around your keel, right? You're only as good as your keel. Right, that goes there, and then the ribs of the boat come around the keel, like that, right, can we? So the keel is that, makes the ribs around like that, and that makes the shape of the boat, right? Just like that, and then the planks get planked around there, right, all the side. And then you put in the chalking, which is like, you put them together, and then the wings are closely sealed together, but you got to put stuff in there to keep it from leaking, right? And we call that chalking. And we did that with stuff called pitch, all right? Pitch, which is like a tar, like the road stuff, and you put that on there, right? You put it outside and inside, and that stuff in there, right? Now you heard the expression, the devil to pay. You heard that expression? He's got the devil to pay. Sounds right religious, doesn't it? You know? But it ain't. It ain't religious. It comes from us sailors, right? Because pay is what we call that pitch. We call it the pay, right? And when you had the devil to pay, well, the devil, right? The devil is actually the longest seam in a ship, right? It's usually right near the waterline, right? Just above the waterline. It's the longest seam of the ship. It goes along there like that. The longest seam, right? That's between all the planks. The longest one is usually that one, right there between the waterline and that was called the devil. So if you had the devil to pay, you had to put the pitch, the chalking, on it, right? When you're inside, you do it down in the bilge, so you're bent down really low and you're doing that, so it's very uncomfortable, right? But when you're on the outside, right, you've heard the expression, between the devil and the deep blue sea. You heard that expression, right? Right? Well, the devil and the blue sea is when you're outside, because you're there, the devil's there, the deep blue sea there, so you're just hanging on for dear life, doing your job, all right? And you usually got stuck with those jobs if you hadn't been behaving yourself, right? So that's another one of those expressions, right? What else we had? With the weather deck, we talked about all that sort of stuff. All right, now, when we talk about our keel, you heard the expression, keeping an even keel, right? Keeping an even keel, you're steady and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's for the boats like this. You see how the boat's just sitting there, right? That's on an even keel. It's not one way or the other way. Everything's pretty balanced and all that kind of stuff. So they call that keeping an even keel. Another expression that comes from that, right? You've heard of being listless. Same thing. The listless means the boat's floating like that. It's not listing. Listing is when you tilt one way or the other, right, in the water. So that boat's not tilting one way or the other way, so it's listless. So it means dull and all that. When you look at that ship there, just sitting there, right, that looks pretty dull. And it ain't got any wind in the sails, you know. Becomes dull. And Also, another, you caught about being in the doldrums when you're feeling all that, you know. You might even be feeling it now, being locked at home half the time. You can't go out and do things. You think, oh, I'm in the doldrums, I'm in the doldrums, Well, that's a sailing term. When you're in doldrums, you ain't got no wind. You're just sitting there and floating about, right? The wind, there's lots of things that come from the wind important, right? You've heard about taking the wind out of somebody's sails. You heard that expression? How do you take the wind out of somebody's sails? That'd be a good tactic. You see this? When the wind's all in the sails, if you can sail properly, right, you can get in behind them and you can block, your sails can cut off the wind to their sails, and that slows them down. Because once you haven't got the wind in your sails, there's no motor in these things, right? You just lose momentum, they slow down. So if you get in behind them, block their wind, right, they slow down, and then you catch up. And that's when you board them, you take the treasure, and you go, yar! And you ask your crew to go, give me an R! R! Give me another R! R! Put them all together, R! That'd be right. That's how you do it. How you take the crew, all right? You heard of being taken aback. That's another expression. You've been taken aback, right? You heard about that? Again, sailing term, right? When you're taken aback, that's what happens if the wind changes all of a sudden, right? The sails, they get taken aback and they flap against the mast there. Sometimes they can even break the mast, which is really bad. That's why taken aback is a bad thing, right? But they can also blow them out the other way, and you can lose the wind and you can stop. So it's a bad thing to be, and that's why you say taken aback, you know, and that's where it comes from. Another maritime expression, right? So they're the kind of things I've been talking about the ship. I don't know if you got any other questions about being life on board. I told you these are the rat lines. You rat up them, right? And we talked about the mainstays and all that sort of stuff and brace it, right? So I think we covered a fair bit of territory there, just talking about stuff on the ship. Something a bit different, you know, something a bit laid back, not jumping around all over the place. We're just sort of pointing and looking. I think that's about it. I'm not sure. We've got the hold, we've got the crew, we've got the cabins. I think we're just about right. You got the wheel. I don't think there's anything else I could cover. We've covered it all, you know. But the Beatrice, she's a beautiful ship. She's fast, manoeuvrable. You can get in and out real fast. And I'd like to do that. I don't take on the big ships, you know. Because where's the treasure in that, right? You get a bit of prestige. Some of them guys like the prestige. They've said, oh, he sunk the Concorde. You got that old Blackbeard. He thought he was all good there. Called it the Queen Anne. We went all over that. But, you know, no. Me and the Beatrice, we just do our job, keeping our treasure and have a good time as a pirate. And that's what I'm teaching her. How to sustain yourself as a pirate. Because, you know, I've been doing this for a number of years now. A number. What number? I don't know. I can't count past my fingers and my hands. And that's why I'm struggling with this show. Because, you know, I'm up to 15 now. And that's all my fingers. Some of my toes. But I keep going on. And on. And on. All right. Now it's time to sit like a pirate. With your head in the air. And laugh. Even when we're sitting, we're proud. That'd be right. And I think it's time we'll pipe you all down so you can go back to your bunks now. And think about all the things. If you were on air, what job would you want to do? Would you be the gunner, the gunner's mate? Would you be up there in the crow's nest having a look around to see what was coming? All these things you learn about there before you go out to sea, you know that. And we can spend some of that treasure you found last week. Right, next week. What are we doing next week? Oh, next week we're going to talk about the articles, all right? Crews and rules, just to keep things going right, all right? So the basic rules we had, right? Just to keep us on the even keel. There it is again. See, good expression, right? Just so we knew what was going on, and there was basic rules that everyone knew what they were, and that just kept us going in the right sort of direction, right? Kept it all working pretty smoothly, right? So next week, which will be lesson 16, I believe. 16! Oh my goodness! 16! I don't believe it. Anyway, lesson 16 will be all about the articles. All right, the articles. Very good. But right now, I think it's time I piped you away and we do something else. So whatever you had in mind, I might hang around for just a little while and try some of the shanties with dear old Dan and my good mate Joe. They'll be here later, those grubby little urchins. They're grubby, but they sing, and I join in. It's all good. All right, but for now, I think we're piping it down. So be happy, shipmates, and enjoy what time you have.